Hi everyone, welcome once again to One on One. I'm Jared Lloyd, prep sports reporter for the Daily Herald, and we're here for our special playoff preview edition. I'm here with my colleague Neil Warner, and Neil, I got to give you credit. You were right last week. It doesn't happen very often, but where's the love? We both got the region champs right because Pleasant Grove and American Fork tied atop the standings.
Hey, Jared, you sound like a loser this week because your team finished second, even though they were tied. You know that American Fork won the region championship. They have the number one seed. And I know we talked off camera. You're going to tell me about how this head-to-head thing should decide everything. If that's the case, American Fork is the region champions. And another thing, Jared, Timpanogos is now third, which I predicted also. And you predicted Lone Peak there, so that should be our tiebreaker.
Well, I have to admit, Timpanogos did play well at the end of the season, but come on, region champ, they both lost a game. Who lost to the better team? Pleasant Grove lost to a better team than American Fork did.
American Fork lost at Spanish Fork.
In a game they should have won.
Running back
well, but they should have won that game. Come on, they run like 5 running backs. Losing one shouldn't have been a big deal. Tied for the region title.
Wait a second. Losing Chris Wernley is not a big deal.
Well, it shouldn't have been, not for that team, but I give you credit because they did win last week. But still, both teams tied atop the region standings.
You're not going to take credit away from American Fork as much as you want to try and make yourself feel better. You know American Fork is going in as the number one seed.
Well, that is true. That is true. Well, like we just talked about, in the big game last weekend, American Fork came out on top of Pleasant Grove, got the win for Neil. Very lucky, I have to admit. But Neil, how big of a difference does it make to be a 1 seed versus a 2 seed?
Well, I don't think the seed is tremendously, a big difference, 1 or 2. Well, I just don't like where Pleasant Grove ended up. After the game, Davis Knight told me we peaked at the bracket, and then he smiled from ear to ear. Why was he smiling? Because he looked at the bracket, Jared. Guess who PG now has to play if they get by the second round?
Well, I know who they have to play. I've looked at the brackets too. I do my homework, and I know that going up against Bingham's a tough game. But right now you're in the state playoffs. Line them up. Set them up and play, play the best games. You got to go through the best teams to win a state title anyway.
My word. Here we go. You sound like one of the coaches who saw the bracket and cried and then got himself together and went to talk to his team. Hey, we got to play them all. Doesn't matter. It matters when you play them. You don't want to play them right off the bat.
Well, they're not playing them right off the bat. They're playing them in the second round. But once you get beyond that first game, a lot of things can happen because injuries happen. Teams peak at different times of the year, and I just don't think it really makes all that big of a difference. I think you have to play the best teams at some point in the bracket anyway. So what's the difference if you play them in the quarterfinals, in the semifinals, or in the finals? You got to win. You got to win the game.
Sampson is calling. He wants you to come over and tell that speech to Pleasant Grove this week. Are you?
Oh, they don't need it. They don't need it. Those kids are tough. They'll handle it. They'll handle it.
We talked a little bit about Pleasant Grove and the tough matchup they have. Let's go over some of the first round pairings. And Jared, you've looked it over. Tell me who you think has the toughest draw in the first round, or not just the first round, but in the bracket overall.
Well, I think Pleasant Grove definitely. You have to look at that team and say, you know what, they've got the toughest draw because you're looking at a second round game against Bingham, who's been lights out this year, played very, very well. And beyond that, you look beyond, if they were able to get past Bingham, they've got tough games in the semifinals, and then in the finals you're looking at, an American Fork or an Alta or those type of teams. I think Pleasant Grove has the toughest draw. So you tell me, now, Neil, who has the easiest draw? Who has the best way to get through?
Well, I like where American Fork's sitting. I mean, you got to look at this bracket. That win basically saved American Fork's run for a title. They're going to open up at the top of one bracket. They get to play Viewmont in the first round. Alta and Bingham are down further, so they don't have to see those two teams who are clearly the top 2 teams in the state so far. Well, so I think you avoid those two and you help yourself.
I think they would meet Alta in the semifinals, if I remember correctly. I think that's how the bracket lines up, but I'm not positive. No, Alta is on the same side as Bingham. I forgot.
Yeah, they would not. They would meet Jordan.
They'd meet Layton in the semifinals. In the second round, they're looking at a Jordan or Hunter. Jordan, and I have to admit that looks a heck of a lot easier than the other teams who they would face in the second round of their in their matchups.
And sometimes you have to say, sometimes you hate to you get what you wish for, and it turns out not to be the right thing. I mean, who knows? It takes a little bit of luck to win this thing. And
every year.
On paper, it sure looks like American Fork is set up pretty well.
Well, and it happened in soccer. We'll talk more about that later. But one of the top teams went down in the first round. That gave Mountain View a pretty clear shot into the semifinals. Big run for them, but they got helped out with some luck.
Yeah.
We flip it around now, and we just talked about the 5A bracket, but now it's time to look at the 4A ranks, and I'm going to ask Neil, I'm going to ask you the same question you just asked me. Who has the toughest bracket, who has the toughest draw in the 4A ranks?
Without question, it's Orem. And here's your reward for beating Mountain View, and taking second. You get open up with Bountiful. You do get a home game, but if you win that game, more than likely you're going down south to St. George. I hate the spot that Orem's in. It's going to be a short tournament for the Tigers.
Well, I think Orem's in a very difficult position, but I wouldn't underestimate the position that Timpview's in. They're looking at playing Cottonwood in the second round because Cottonwood lost the coin flip. A third round game against Highland, quite likely, is what's setting up in that, in the semifinals. And then you're looking at a finals matchup against either a good East team or a Pineview team or one of those other teams. So Timpview could honestly play the three best teams they faced all season in those in three straight games. That's not an easy draw for the Thunderbirds.
Timpview definitely will have their work cut out for them. The thing that I don't like about Orem's spot is not only, how about this, if you win, if you upset, and I do think it's an upset, even though they're a 2 seed, if you upset your first round opponent, you've got to go down to St. George and play Pineview, who's supposed to be one of the top 4A teams. That's a horrible draw.
They didn't do very well when they drove down there earlier in the year.
They got shut out by Snow Canyon, so I really don't like that. Timpview does have a tough go. Jared, I just don't know if any of these teams other than Timpview are going to survive the first round.
I don't know either, but who do you think has the best draw as you look at it? Who's got the best draw in 4A?
Yeah, probably. I mean, if you look at it, how about this? The fourth place team.
I know that I looked at that and it stunned me, but it's the winner of the play-in game. We'll talk more about that. But the winner of Tuesday's play-in game is in pretty good position, going up against a Mountain Crest team that's hot and cold. Now, they still have to travel. It's a road game, and going up to Mountain Crest is not easy. Nobody's going to say it is, but not really a bad position for that fourth place team.
Isn't it funny how it works out where a fourth place team can end up sitting a little bit better than the others?
Yeah.
And I don't think
the luck of the draw.
I don't think Payson or Springville can go up to Mountain Crest and win, but I think they have a heck of a lot better chance of doing that than playing East or Bountiful for that matter.
Exactly. And, Springville did it a couple of years ago. It is possible. Yeah. So they just have to win the play-in game and see what they can do.
Well, several Utah Valley teams are going to hit the road for the first round of the playoffs. Jared, I'm going to ask you, which of the teams that are going to be on the road this week have the best chance of doing an upset?
Well, there's two that I like particularly. I don't really like Mountain View's chances against East. I think East is going to win that game. Mountain View's had a heck of a season, takes nothing away from what they've done, but that's a really tough draw for them. You look on the other side, I think the winner of the 5A play-in game, they've got their work cut out for them as well, going up against a Layton team that's been really hot. You called that earlier. You've been right twice in one season. That's just unbelievable.
Look at my head grow.
Crazy. But I really like the position. We just talked about it. I like the position of the 4A play-in game winner. I think that Payson and Springville can go on the road and play against Mountain Crest. They've got to drive a long way, but if they can stay close through that first half, I really like their chances to get the upset.
I can't believe you're totally ignoring the team with the best chance of an upset, Jared.
Well, this is the other team that I thought has a good chance.
I'm going to go with Timpanogos. I've been on Timpanogos for most of the year, Jared. This offense is pretty darn good. I think their defense is starting to come around. I mean, look what they did to Lone Peak last week. This team is starting to come together at the right time. The weather reports are supposed to be good, which is one thing I was looking at before I picked Timpanogos, because they're going to air it out. In fact, I'm going with Timpanogos to upset Northridge in the first round.
Well, we'll get to that in the predictions a little more seriously, but I believe they've got a really good shot. I don't know if I trust that defense. I want to wait and see what they do against a team that has a better offense than the teams they've played the last couple of weeks. But I think they've got a chance with the way Christian Stewart throws the ball.